Ghost Story, Karma and Retribution. Author Min Uyen. At 7:30 a.m., Fan was turning back and forth in front of the mirror, muttering to herself, "Tsk, I look pretty, not inferior to a city girl." After speaking, she burst out giggling, but suddenly got startled when she heard someone speaking from behind her. "Wow, that's some illusion. School feels like a fashion show. Why are you so dressed up today?" Turning around, Fan realized it was Tui, her best friend. She replied, "Let me show off once in a while, okay? Do I have to be rural all the time?" Tui pouted. "Stop it, Missy. You're going to be late for class. There's an important discussion today. Did you forget or what? Why are you still standing here?" Suddenly recalling something, Fan quickly said, "Oh no, I completely forgot. Let's go fast." With that, the two female students hurried to school, walking and chatting loudly. Fan and Tui have been close friends since childhood. Their families live near each other, so they are like sisters, sharing both happy and sad times. They both got into the University of Humanities, Faculty of Journalism and Communication, with the same dream of becoming reporters. The first day they set foot in the city, the two girls were overwhelmed by its grandeur, so different from the rustic scenes in the countryside. Reminding themselves that they must study hard to help their parents, they dedicated themselves to their studies. They didn't even think about having fun, not even for a minute. 3 years of school passed, and every year both Tan and Tui received scholarships and were honored at school. This year is the final year, and the discussion that Tui mentioned today is the career orientation session after graduation, which is crucial for her and Tui as they enter their careers in the future. As soon as I arrived at school, the loudspeaker announced that everyone should gather in the hall to prepare for the discussion. Fan softly said, "Lucky we just made it, right? If you had spent a little more time in front of the mirror, you and I would be having a milk tea break today," Thui quipped. "This one." Fan huffed lightly, and then they both walked quickly toward the hall. The MC's voice echoed through the microphone. "Please, teachers and students, please take your seats so we can begin the discussion." The entire hall was buzzing with conversation. Some people were excited, others curious. A moment later, the whole atmosphere became silent. The MC's voice rang out again. "Dear teachers, dear students, today we are honored to be here to attend a discussion to share experiences and career steps for you after graduation. We would like to respectfully introduce today's guests to all the teachers and students. Dr. Master No Kwak Hyo and Assistant Master Ho Ding Kwak, who are currently working at the editorial office of Faith newspaper. Please give them a big round of applause." Thunderous applause erupted, and the discussion went quite well. Fan paid special attention to the assistant, who was young but very knowledgeable. The whole time, she was so engrossed in listening to him speak that Tui had to remind her several times. The discussion ended, but Than still kept looking at the guy without taking her eyes off him. "This! Are you in love? Why do you keep staring as if you want to swallow someone? This one." "Shut up," Than blushed. Than's embarrassment made Tui cover her mouth and giggle. She watched as Kwak disappeared behind the stage, and she felt a strange emotion in her heart. While she was lost in thought, Thui's voice brought her back to reality. "Hey, are you daydreaming? Let's go drink milk tea." "Yes. Oh, I forgot. Let's leave it for another day. Now take me to Aunt Bay's restaurant. I changed shifts and I forgot." It was a slight, "Huh." But Thui also agreed. Aunt Bay's restaurant is a place where Than works outside of school hours. She takes advantage of the extra work to help reduce expenses for her parents. Upon arriving at the shop, she quickly greeted Aunt Bay, the shop owner, then put on her apron and got to work. She is agile and cheerful, so Aunt Bay considers her like family and always helps cover some of her expenses. While she was busy clearing the table, she noticed a man's wallet dropped under a chair, belonging to a customer who had just left. She ran to call the customer to return the wallet. The man didn't realize anyone was calling, so he just kept walking with his head down. Annoyed, Than quickly ran up and grabbed his arm, startling him, and he turned around, asking in surprise, "What's the matter, young lady?" Than held her stomach and gasped, "Are you deaf or something? I called you until my throat was sore." Looking up to say more, she seemed to freeze, standing still and staring. It turned out that this customer was Quack, the assistant from the morning's discussion. Stammering a bit, she said, I'm sorry, it's you? I didn't realize." Quack frowned slightly. "Yes, it's me, but you haven't answered my question. Why are you acting so strangely? I chased after you because you dropped your wallet. You were walking too fast. I'm sorry." Putting his hand in his pocket and realizing his wallet was missing, Quack also felt embarrassed. I was so careless. I dropped my wallet without noticing. Please give it back to me. Thank you." Receiving the wallet from Than, Quack thanked her profusely. "This has all my important identification documents. Luckily, without you, I would be lost today. Thank you very much." "It's nothing, sir. I checked to see if anything was missing. I saw it, picked it up, and ran to catch you, but I didn't open it." "Oh, no need to check. But what's your name?" "My name is Than, and I am a student at the school where you had the discussion this morning." Quack smiled gently. Nice to meet you. I'm Quack. I'm busy today, so next time I'll thank you for helping me out. Or could you give me your phone number so I can contact you?" "I'm young, so don't call me Auntie. Sounds so old." They quickly exchanged phone numbers and then Quack left. Just as promised, the next day Quack asked Than out for coffee. The two talked happily, seemingly compatible. Than realized she liked Quack, and perhaps Quack felt the same way. He liked her too. From their first meeting, he had cared for her a lot. They seemed like a couple, even if they hadn't officially declared it. Many neighbors planned to confess their love to her, but they were all too busy and didn't have the time to tell her they loved her. Quack decided to confess his love on the most special occasion, which was Than's graduation ceremony. Finally, the day arrived. Than's graduation day. The night before, Quack had carefully rehearsed in front of the mirror the words of love he wanted to say to Than. "Than, will you be my girlfriend?" Sigh. Why say it so bluntly? Quack thought to himself. Please give me the opportunity to care for and love you. Sigh. No, that's too much. What's wrong with you, Quack? He kept talking to the mirror and laughing at his own awkwardness. To him, Than was a very special girl, so he didn't want to confess his love in the usual way. He wanted to make sure she would be truly happy. Ringing! The sound of the alarm startled Quack. He quickly got ready, put on a neat suit, and grabbed the bouquet of yellow roses that he had carefully prepared the night before for this important event. Looking at himself in the mirror, he smiled and quickly headed to the school to attend Than's graduation ceremony. As soon as he arrived, he met Thuy. Thuy was wearing her graduation gown and stood taking pictures with her friends. Seeing Quack with a bouquet of flowers, Thuy frowned slightly and tried to pass by, but Quack quickly ran to greet her. Hello, Thuy. You look very pretty in your graduation gown today. Thank you. Thuy replied curtly and then turned away before Quack could say another word. Quack was a bit surprised by Thuy's attitude, but he quickly forgot about it when he saw Than walking through the crowd toward him. Mr. Quack, you're here? Come on, let me introduce you to my mother. I'm a bit nervous, maybe next time? Oh, don't be silly, acting like a shy bride. My mother is very gentle. Just come along. Than frowned sarcastically. Quack took a deep breath and quickly followed Than. He politely greeted her mother, and she said, "Mom, this is Mr. Quack, my friend, the one I often talk about. Hello, thank you for helping my daughter. She's my only girl. Despite our hardships, we tried to send her to school. Now she's so successful, it makes me very happy." Mrs. Hoa blinked her eyes full of crow's feet and spoke to Quack. "Yes, ma'am. Than has worked very hard, and that's why she's achieved what she has today. I promise to help her as much as I can. Don't worry." All three of them chatted happily and excitedly, their voices carrying through the yard. From a distance, Tui saw them, glanced over, let out a soft sigh, and then turned away. The loudspeaker announced for everyone to gather in the hall, prompting everyone to rush in. After settling her mother's seat, Than quickly returned to her own seat next to Tui, waiting for the ceremony to begin. Once the formalities of the ceremony were complete, the MC began announcing the awards and revealing the valedictorian and salutatorian. Coincidentally, both Than and Tui were at the top of the list. The two girls were nervous and held their breath as the MC made the announcements. Dear teachers, parents, and students, this year, 2 students scored the same. They are Than and Thui from journalism class K31. Please welcome them both to the stage. Than and Thui quickly walked toward the stage where the MC was gesturing. Than glanced down at the row of chairs where her mother and Quack were seated. She smiled brightly, waiting for the results. Quack was equally nervous because after the results were announced, his own important moment would follow. So he stood still, his heart pounding, as the MC read out, "Dear teachers and friends, this year we have 2 beautiful and talented students. Let's give them a round of applause before we announce the final results." After the applause ended, the MC continued. "Both of you achieved very good results, and your exam scores were tied. However, during the course of study and training, one of you stood out. So the result is, this year's valedictorian of our faculty is Than. Congratulations!" The entire hall burst into applause. Mrs. Hoa was overjoyed. Tears streamed down her cheeks, which made Quack emotional as well. Congratulations again to Than. And congratulations to Thuthui on achieving the position of salutatorian. Please step up to receive your diploma. You did an excellent job. The MC had to call her name a 3rd time before Thui snapped out of her daze and stepped forward. Since hearing the announcement, her ears were ringing, her teeth clenched, and her fists tightened. She was unhappy with the result, believing she had performed exceptionally. Why? Why is this happening? Thui glanced at Than and felt angry. She received the flowers and diploma with an indifferent attitude, then left the stage without saying a word, causing the MC to pause for a few seconds. However, she quickly continued to ensure the ceremony was not disrupted. And now, please invite our new graduate, our new valedictorian, to come up to the podium to receive her flowers and diploma. Than stepped up, her legs shaking so much that they bumped into each other. She accepted the flowers and diploma. With a bright smile, she walked to the podium and expressed her thanks. I greet teachers, parents, and all students. Today, I am really happy because over the past 4 years, I have tried my best, and with the dedicated guidance of my teachers, I have achieved today's results. I would like to express my utmost gratitude to my teachers and thank my mother for encouraging and sacrificing for me to get to where I am today. Thank you for accompanying me. Thank you. After speaking, Than bowed to express her gratitude. A round of applause erupted again. She walked down to return to her seat when she was surprised to see Quack approaching from the audience with a bouquet of flowers. He went up on stage, gave her the flowers, and then knelt down. Congratulations, my girl. On this special day, under the witness of the teachers, please give me the opportunity to love and protect you. Fan was extremely surprised and happy. She looked down at her mother, who nodded gently, and she replied loudly, I agree. The auditorium exploded with applause and cheers. It was impossible to describe the happiness in her heart right now. She looked down at her friend and smiled brightly as if she wanted to share the moment with her best friend, unaware that her friendship had sparked dangerous jealousy. Annoyed, Thuy threw her flowers and diploma onto the bed. She poured a glass of water and drank it all in one gulp, then set the glass on the table and breathed heavily. What do you have that's better than me? Why is it always you? At this moment, Fan and Kwok also arrived. Fan rushed into the room and asked Thuy worriedly, What's wrong with you? Why didn't you stay to eat with me? You don't look well. I was so worried that I came running home. Are you in pain? I'm okay. Don't look so worried. Thuy waved her hand and gave a faint smile. Are you dissatisfied with something about me? Why are you acting like this? Thuy shook Fan's hand off and stood up. Don't pretend to be nice to me. Hey Thuy, Fan only means well and cares about you. Why are you acting like this? Kwok spoke up when he saw Thuy push Than away. Then he turned to Than and softly said, Okay, Thuy, there's no need to worry. Let's go, or everyone will be waiting. Go away. Stop staying here and acting out those annoying scenes. Thuy screamed and ran out, leaving Than and Kwok standing there, stunned. Thuy stormed off in anger. Without paying attention, she bumped into Dai. Dai is a notorious boss in this rough neighborhood. Everyone is afraid of him. He had noticed Thuy for a while, but she always avoided him. Why did she run into him today? Thuy was about to curse the guy standing in her way when she suddenly stopped because she recognized it was Dai. I'm sorry, Thuy stammered. After Dai saw Thuy, he teased. It's okay. It's an honor to be bumped into by a beauty. Where are you going in such a hurry? Are you free? Can I invite you for coffee? Well, I have something to do. I'll be on my way. Hey, where are you rushing off to? You might trip over a rock and run into me. Hey. Looks like you're having a rough day. Not feeling happy? I'm willing to listen to your story. Just trust me. Thuy frowned and was about to leave when she saw Kwok carrying Than, running past. She gritted her teeth and turned back to Dai. Okay, let's go. Just waiting for that, Dai quickly replied. Okay, hold on a moment. I'll get my car and pick you up. Hey. A moment later, Dai drove his new SH scooter and stopped in front of Thuy. Come on, let's get the beauty on board. With a sigh, she put on a helmet and got on Dai's scooter. He drove her to a fancy coffee shop. She wouldn't even dream of entering a place like this. While she was standing there, she was startled by Dai's insistence. She followed him inside and chose a table. After Dai placed their order, he quickly got down to business. So, what do you think? Isn't this place beautiful? Does it help to take your mind off things? It's okay, but do you have enough money to cover this? Ha ha, don't worry. I can pay for the whole shop. Dai laughed loudly. Thuy looked at the man in front of her. Although he seemed fierce, he was also quite handsome and appeared to have a lot of money. But until now, she only knew him as a tattooed gangster and didn't know what his main job was. Dai's voice interrupted Thuy's thoughts. Hey, what are you thinking about? Got something to share? Whoever made you mad, I'll take care of them. Really? Would you handle it for me? Thuy was skeptical. For sure. When you meet someone you like, you make sure they're okay. As Dai spoke, he raised his hand, made a gesture around his neck, and stuck out his tongue, which made Thuy laugh. Okay, I believe you. It's true that someone made me angry, but now is not the time to deal with them. I'll take my time. Okay, anytime you need me, just call. I'm ready. Thuy laughed again. It turned out that behind his grumpy appearance, he was quite cute. Ah, we've known each other for a long time, but I don't know what you do. What's your CV? Dai paused slightly at Thuy's question, his expression turning fierce. Why do you need to know? Oh, I was just asking. Sorry. Thuy's face turned pale. Seeing Thuy's scared expression, Dai lowered his voice. You don't need to worry about what I do. Just know that if I'm your boyfriend, you won't have to worry about food, clothes, or anything else. I take care of everything. If you behave, you can have whatever you want. Thuy mumbled and brought her glass of water to her mouth, drinking to ease her fear. After that day, Thuy also agreed to be Dai's girlfriend. Indeed, he pampered her a lot, giving her everything from clothes to luxury phones, designer handbags, and even cash. She had enough money to send back home to her mother without having to worry too much. The only thing that bothered her was that Dai often disappeared for a few days before returning, which made Thuy quite curious. However, when he returned, he would take her out to eat and shop, so she didn't feel the need to find out more. Seeing that her friend was in a dangerous relationship, Than was very worried. She tried to give advice, but Thuy ignored her. Thuy's work suffered, and her boss scolded her many times, which only made her even more upset. Because of this job, Kwok stepped in and helped Thuy get the position after many failed attempts because Thuy kept demanding too much based on her salutatorian degree. The more Than tried to progress in her career, the more Thuy regressed. Thuy indulged in partying and paid little attention to her work because Dai supported her financially. If she had everything she needed, why bother working? She accepted a job at the same company as Tan, mainly because it was a reputable company that would boost her mother's standing in the neighborhood. She did the bare minimum, working only the required 8 hours, with no interest in improving or developing her skills. Seeing Thuy putting on makeup and getting ready to go out with Dai, Than asked, "Are you going out again? I think Mr. Dai is not a good person, so maybe you should limit your contact with him." Thuy stopped and turned around. "It's my private life. Don't interfere. Good or not, he takes care of me. That's enough for me. You've changed so much. Do you remember what we promised before going to college? To become famous reporters together, to be filial to our mothers, to make them proud." Thuy waved her hand, indicating she didn't want to listen. "Just stop it. I'm still filial to my mother. Is she lacking anything? Why do I have to be out on the street chasing stories for useless news? Well, it's up to you. But you should remember that Mr. Kwok got you this job, so don't do anything to damage his reputation. Tomorrow, there's an important meeting to brainstorm new ideas for the anniversary magazine. You should stay home and work." Thuy reapplied her lipstick, curled her lips, and stood up. "So it's all about favors, huh? I don't need them. Don't think that just because you got me a job, you can tell me what to do. Let me tell you, I'm moving out next week. Mr. Dai has already rented a house for me. You can have your room back and enjoy your romance." Than was about to say more when Dai's car screeched to a halt in front of the door. Thuy climbed into the car and urged him to drive away because he was still staring intently at Than. Dai revved the engine and drove off, but not before giving a polite nod to Than. Thuy shook her head and sighed as she went back to cleaning up the clothes Thuy had left strewn on the bed. Sitting in the back of the car, Thuy was irritated. Why does he look at me like that? Does he like me or something? Dai responded, "No, it's because we haven't seen each other in a while, so he was just looking at you like that. But what did he do to make you so angry? Who does he think he is to dare to teach me about my life? Don't get too upset. I'll take you to a place where you can forget all your worries." Dai took Thuy to the second largest bar in the city. The loud music made Thuy a bit uncomfortable. She sat down while Dai ordered a drink. Thuy watched the young men and women swaying to the music and sighed. Dai returned with 2 glasses of Long Island and introduced them as the bar's best cocktails. Thuy took a sip and grimaced at the strong taste. She raised her hand to decline, but Dai said, "You'll get used to it. It will help you relieve stress. Come on, drink up. Don't be shy. It's not fun if you don't." Not wanting to offend Dai, she closed her eyes and drank the entire glass. Indeed, Thuy felt refreshed and excited. She started swaying to the music and laughing joyfully. Dai quickly finished his own drink and then grabbed Thuy's hand to join the dancing crowd. 11 p.m. Thuy slowly opened her eyes. She rubbed her forehead because the glass of Long Island last night had given her a headache. Her throat was dry, so she sat up and reached for some water. Suddenly, she bumped into someone lying next to her. When she looked, she was startled to see it was Dai, and both he and she were naked. She looked around and saw she was in an unfamiliar room. She held her head and tried to recall what happened last night, but couldn't. At that moment, Dai also began to stir. Thuy turned over, then she shouted angrily and hit Dai with a pillow to wake him up. He growled, "Hey, what the hell are you doing? You bastard! You got me drunk and then took advantage of me. Hey, what's the problem? Any loving couple would do this. You scumbag! Stay away from me." Thuy quickly grabbed her clothes and ran to the bathroom to take a shower, hoping to wash away any trace of him. She returned, grabbed her bag, and stormed out. Dai yelled loudly, "Where are you going? This is your place. I rented it for us. Why are you so angry?" Thuy ignored him, slammed the door, and left. Dai smirked and went back to sleep. Thuy took a taxi back to her room. In the taxi, she cried a lot. She had guarded her virginity for so long, only to be tricked by that scoundrel, all because she let her guard down, not thinking he would do such a thing. When she entered the motel room, she saw Than sleeping at her desk, with her laptop screen still on. Thuy rolled her eyes, poured herself a glass of water, and drank it in one gulp. As she was about to change clothes and head to bed, she glanced at Than's desk and noticed the laptop. Isn't this the document for tomorrow's meeting? This girl is really diligent. Thuy thought to herself, then stood up and went to her closet to get clothes. Suddenly she paused and turned to look at Than. Thuy had an idea. With a faint smile, she closed the closet door and walked over to Than's laptop. With quick actions, she copied all the documents onto a USB drive. After packing up to leave, she stopped to think. If she saved a draft, it would be pointless, but where would she save it? I need to find it. Unsure of what to do, Thuy's eyes fell on Than's glass of water next to her. God help me, ha-ha! After finishing, she took her bag and laptop and quickly left the room. She took a taxi back to Dai's house to have proof that she hadn't gone back to Than's room. After ringing the doorbell, Dai opened the door with an irritated expression because his sleep had been interrupted. Why are you coming back? I thought you left. I'm sorry for getting angry. I've thought about it and brought some late-night food to make up for it. You need something to eat after sobering up, right? As she spoke, Thuy held up 2 boxes of hot stir-fried pho, making Dai's stomach growl. He smacked his lips. At least you know how to make up for it. Come in. After they finished eating, Thuy took her laptop, plugged in the USB drive, transferred the copied file, made some edits to make it different from Than's version, and saved it. She smiled proudly. Let's see if you can still show off to me. Thuy's behavior puzzled Dai, but they had agreed not to interfere in each other's personal matters, so he didn't ask too much and went back to sleep. After completing her task, Thuy went to bed. remembering to set her alarm for the next morning. She was so excited about seeing Than's defeated face that it took her a while to fall asleep, with a triumphant smile still on her lips. 6 a.m. the next morning. Than woke up, reached for her phone to check the time, and quickly got up to do her morning routine to go to work. After changing clothes, Than turned on her laptop to check the documents again and panicked because the screen stayed black. She tried everything, but it still had no signal. Than was so worried that she cried because the meeting was about to start. It was working fine last night. Why was it acting like this now? She kept trying, but the laptop remained silent as if taunting her. Then scratched her head and pulled her hair, not knowing what to do. Then noticed that the glass of water she drank yesterday was lying on the table, with a few drops on the surface. She touched the laptop's keyboard, and it was damp. Water had spilled on it. Did I fall asleep and spill a glass of water onto my laptop? That's impossible. But if it's not that, then what else could it be? Her thoughts were interrupted by her phone ringing. It was Kwok. Have you arrived yet? Do you need me to pick you up? On Kwok. Than cried and was speechless. Kwok heard Than's choked voice and asked, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" Than sobbed and explained everything to Kwok. He was as confused as she was, but he had to stay calm to comfort his girlfriend. "Don't cry anymore. I'll help you redo it in time, okay? I'll find a way to buy us some extra time." "How can I get it done in time? The meeting is about to start." "Okay, calm down. Just go to the company first. Let me think of a way." Than said yes, then grabbed her bag, closed the door, and ran to the company. At the gate, Kwok was waiting, looking worried. "I managed to postpone the meeting by 30 minutes. Can you make it in time?" "I don't think I can. Can I give a presentation without the documents? I still remember most of it in my head." "Are you confident?" Seeing his girlfriend nod firmly, Kwok signaled okay and pulled out his phone to make a call. Then he came back to tell Than that the board had agreed to let her give the presentation without documents. Kwok held her hand to encourage her, and the two went to the meeting room. Standing at the door, she took a deep breath and pushed it open, her eyes widening in surprise when she saw Thuy sitting quietly in the room. Didn't she say yesterday that she wasn't coming? Kwok gently squeezed Than's hand, startling her. She quickly sat down, still glancing at Thuy. On the other side, Thuy smiled at Than, making her feel uneasy. Why does this feel so weird? Than placed her hand on her chest to calm herself, then turned her eyes toward the meeting chairman. His voice rang out to start the meeting. "Dear leaders, ladies and gentlemen, today we are here for the company's anniversary event. We are eager to hear your presentations about new ideas. In order of arrival, the first person to present today is Thuy. Please come up and share your ideas with us. Since you were the first to arrive, you can go first. Please." Than couldn't believe her ears. She was truly surprised. The person who seemed to care the least about this job last night was now the first to arrive today? And how did she come up with the presentation? When did she even create it? What's happening? Thousands of questions ran through Than's mind, but she couldn't find answers. She shook her head to clear her thoughts and focused on Thuy's presentation. Than looked up at the projection screen, and once again, she couldn't believe her eyes. She could only gasp in surprise. Every word, every image on the slides, every sentence, every point being made by Thuy, it was all hers. These were her ideas, her presentation. How? How did it become Thuy's? What was happening? Seeing his girlfriend's face turn pale and her hands and feet go cold, Kwok asked softly, "Are you okay, Than?" Than's voice choked, unable to utter a word. Kwok worriedly reassured her, "Stay calm." Than took a deep breath, trying to hold back tears. She whispered, "Thui's presentation? It's mine! Are you sure?" Than nodded firmly. Seeing the tearful determination in her eyes, Kwok believed her. Just as Thui's presentation ended, Kwok stood up and announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, there has been fraud here." The entire meeting room erupted in commotion. "Hi," the company director signaled for silence and then looked at Kwok. "What are you talking about? Do you know where you are?" Kwok continued, "Sir, Miss Thui has cheated. She stole my girlfriend's documents and claimed them as her own." Thui turned pale but tried to maintain a calm demeanor. "This is clearly my presentation. Where's the proof that it's your girlfriend's? Yes, you need evidence to make such claims." The whole room was abuzz, creating a chaotic atmosphere. Thui remained still because she knew for sure that Than had no evidence. Her expression was calm and almost challenging. At this moment, Than stood up to explain. "Yes, board of directors, this is really my idea. I stayed up all night working on it. But I don't understand how Thui got it. I assure you that I'm telling the truth." Thui also stood up. "You say it's yours, right? If this is your work, where's the proof? If you made it, you must have a copy or something to show it's yours. Bring it out. Otherwise, stop slandering others." Miss. Seeing that the atmosphere was becoming tense, the company's director slammed the table and said, "Stop causing a scene. This is a meeting room. Miss Than, you claim that Thui's presentation is yours. Do you have any proof?" "Yes, sir, but my laptop suddenly broke this morning and couldn't start. I suspect someone sabotaged it. All my documents are lost. But I remember all the details very clearly. I'm sure this is my work. If you don't have any proof, we can't believe you. This has never happened before in the company. Miss Thui, did you steal my documents and destroy my laptop?" Thui looked angry. "Watch your words. Last night I was at my boyfriend's house. I never went back to my room. My boyfriend can testify. Don't go around blaming others." Kwok was about to speak up to defend his girlfriend, but Hai stopped him. "Kwok, I respect our long-standing relationship, so I advise you to be fair and unbiased. Don't defend your girlfriend at the expense of your career. I accept Thui's idea, and we will use it for the company's anniversary. Thui will have full decision-making authority for this project. The meeting is over. Everyone, go back to work." Than slumped down in her chair, covering her face and sobbing. All her hard work was blatantly stolen. Moreover, it was stolen by her best friend. She felt hopeless. Thui threw a disdainful smile at Than and then left the room. Finally, she got what she wanted. She called Dai to celebrate, but he didn't answer the phone. After thinking for a moment, she decided to go back to her room to pack her things to move to the new house. Anyway, after this, she couldn't stay any longer. As soon as she entered the room, Thui was startled to see the door open. She hesitated for a few minutes and then decided to go inside. What's there to be afraid of? There's no evidence. Thinking this, she tried to act as naturally as possible as she entered. As soon as she walked in and saw Than, she avoided eye contact and quickly said, "I'm just here to pack my things." "Why did you do this to me?" Thui showed no interest. "What are you talking about?" "Didn't I explain at the company? If you have evidence, present it. If not, don't blame me." "Evidence? You destroyed my laptop and now you're asking for proof?" After saying this, Than paused for a moment, then raised her voice. "Right. Your laptop. Last night you obviously went out. I reminded you about the meeting and you said you didn't need this job and then left. At that time, your laptop was still at home. How did you work on a laptop if you weren't in your room? Did you come back, steal my documents, and then destroy my laptop?" Caught off guard, Thui defended herself. You're talking nonsense. I took my laptop with me. It's because you remember it wrong. No way. I personally cleaned up your things for you. Your laptop was clearly still here. Also, I'm left-handed, so when I work, I keep my essentials on the left side, including my glass of water. I remember putting the glass on my left, but it somehow moved to the right and then spilled water on my laptop? It was you. You did it. Reasoning her way out, Tui defended, "It's just your memory. Who's to say you remember correctly? You might have moved the glass yourself. What if you don't remember? No one is going to believe your memory. If you can provide evidence, then show it. Now move aside while I pack my things." Thui pushed Than out of the way and went in to gather all her belongings. Than felt helpless and started crying. After packing, Thui was walking out the door when Than suddenly shouted, "You're a thief. Your life will never go well. Being happy at the expense of other people's sweat and tears won't end well. A thief is always a thief." Thui turned around, her eyes filled with anger. "What did you say, kid?" "I said you're a thief. I'll wait to see how miserable your life becomes." "Damn it! I don't have friends like you. Get out!" "Okay, just wait." Thui stormed out with a flushed face. In Than's home, she sat down, covered her face, and sobbed. Why did it turn out like this? Why did her best friend betray her? Originally, Than just blurted out those words to release her anger. But unexpectedly, because of those words, she was about to face danger, and it was coming from her supposed friend. Stopping the car in front of the new house, Thui rang the bell repeatedly, but no one opened the door. Angry, Thui kicked her suitcase to the ground. Thinking back to Than's words, she gritted her teeth. "You will pay for this." At that moment, her phone rang. It was Dai calling. Thui shouted into the phone, "Where have you been all morning?" "I was at work. Why are you yelling?" "I'm done here, standing in front of the house." "Wait a minute, I'll be right there." 5 minutes later, Dai returned home and opened the door for Thui to enter. Seeing Thui's belongings, he was puzzled. "What's all this stuff?" "You said you rented this house for me. Don't I have the right to move in?" No, I was just curious. Have you packed everything?" "I thought you couldn't bear to leave your best friend. What's going on? Did something happen?" He accidentally mentioned Than, which made her shout angrily. "Shut up, don't ever mention her name again." "Okay, calm down, why so hot-tempered? Need any help?" Thui didn't answer. She put her things in a corner and went to take a shower. Outside, Dai sat, wondering what could have upset Thui so much. He vaguely sensed that something had happened between her and Than. Fine, if she moves out, he will have a chance to approach Than. To be honest, the last time he met her, he had already noticed Than, but Thui was still around, so it wasn't convenient to make a move. Thinking this, he stroked his chin and smiled smugly. Coming out of the bathroom and seeing Dai sitting deep in thought, Thui cleared her throat. "Why are you sitting there, smiling to yourself? Are you daydreaming about me?" Dai was startled. "No, not at all. I was just thinking about where to take you to relax." "Let's go to the same bar we went to last time then." Thui replied briefly. "Okay, let's go. Go change your clothes, I'll wait." They went to the bar, and after ordering drinks, Dai asked, "What's going on with you and your friend? Tell me about it." Taking a sip of her drink, Thui told Dai about what happened that morning, including when Than lectured and scolded her. Dai scratched his lips as if deep in thought. Then he spoke up. "I see. So that night you came back not to make peace with me, but because..." Saying that, Dai laughed in a rather cruel way, which made Thui angry. "So what? She dares to confront me. Just let her experience the consequences." "Heh, I'm not average either. That's why I like you. Let me handle your revenge." Thui seemed doubtful. "What are you planning? If you harm a woman, that's cowardly. Don't worry, there's a way to do it without violence. Come closer, and I'll tell you. He whispered into Thui's ear. Whatever he said, it made her eyes light up. After listening, she smiled triumphantly. Very good, this will ruin her entire career. Dai also flashed a proud smile. He wasn't helping Thui out of kindness. He saw this as an opportunity to carry out his own sinister scheme. Those two despicable people had devised a truly deplorable plan. The day they chose to execute it was when Kwok went on a business trip to the west. With Kwok away, their plan could unfold without interference. After finalizing their scheme, they mingled with the crowd, enjoying the music and cigarette smoke. 2 days later, during his business trip, Kwok had a strange feeling. He couldn't quite describe it. He just felt like something was squeezing his heart, making it hard to breathe. He quickly took out his phone and called Than. Hello, it's me. Are you okay at home? I felt uneasy, so I called to check on you. I'm not a child. Don't worry about me. Hearing his girlfriend's words, he smiled softly and said, Try not to dwell on that situation too much. Just relax for a few days, then get back to work. I know. I'm not upset anymore. Okay, get back to your work. I'll take a nap. After hanging up, Kwok still felt a burning anxiety in his heart. He didn't understand what was bothering him. He tried calling Than back to say a few things, but his boss summoned him to a meeting, so he told himself he would call again after finishing work. He didn't know that would be the last time he would talk to Than. Meanwhile, in the motel room, Than's phone rang again. She thought it was her boyfriend calling, but when she checked the number, she turned it off. The phone rang again. She hesitated for a moment, then answered, What do you want? On the other end of the line, there was no response, just music and sobbing. It was Thui crying. Than was startled. Hello, what's going on? I'm sorry for everything. I don't deserve to be your friend. Thui burst into tears again, making Than feel sorrowful. She softened her voice. It's okay. Where are you? I'm Dro. Hello, beautiful lady. Why are you sitting here alone like this? Let us keep you company. No. Stay away from me. Than heard that Thui was in trouble. She asked loudly, Where are you? Help me. Light bar. Tut. Than jumped up, grabbed her coat, and called a taxi to go to Thui. When she got there, she squeezed through the chaotic crowd to find Thui. After much effort, she found Thui lying on a bench, her clothes disheveled. Rushing to hug her friend, she worriedly shook Thui awake. Seeing Than, Thui clung to her and cried. After a while, Thui calmed down, wiped her tears and said, You must hate me, right? Let's leave it behind. Thui continued to cry. I'm sorry, it's just that my mother is sick. I needed this project to have the money to take care of my mom and to give her peace of mind, knowing I had a stable job. That's why Why didn't you tell me? I could have helped you. I didn't want anyone's pity. Now that you know everything, are you going to report me? Thinking for a moment, Than sighed, Let it go. I won't tell anyone. I'll just work hard on future projects. Do you really hate me? Than smiled. You're my friend. Just do your best. Then let's drink this together. It seems like it'll clear everything up. We can still be friends. Than was a bit hesitant because she didn't drink alcohol. Understanding this, Thui reassured her. Don't worry, it's just a cocktail, not hard liquor. If you don't drink, I'll think you're still mad at me. It's a toast to your success with the project. Out of respect for her friend, Than clinked glasses and drank the cocktail without noticing the sly look in the eyes of the person she had considered her best friend. She was about to receive a gift that she never saw coming. Out of respect for her friend, Than also clinked glasses and drank the entire cocktail without noticing the cunning eyes of the person she considered her best friend, who was about to bring her a gift she did not expect. A strange noise made Than open her eyes. She had a headache and couldn't move her limbs. The darkness around her made it difficult to breathe. It turned out her eyes were sealed shut. She struggled in the dark, but her body was completely helpless. She vaguely heard a woman's voice. She wanted to scream but couldn't. She listened carefully. There were two people in the room, and their voices were very familiar, but she couldn't immediately recognize them. When they realized Than was awake, the two strangers stopped talking, and the room fell terrifyingly silent. Suddenly, someone breathed heavily into her ear. This time, Than knew she was in grave danger. She struggled with all the strength she had left and continued to kick, but the stranger became even more aggressive. She felt disgusted, cried, and begged, but the person ignored her and even said sarcastically, "Your crying makes me even happier. Haha, I'm leaving this afternoon, honey." The cowards had humiliated Than. She was in so much pain that she wished she could die. She cried because she had been tainted by a scoundrel. She cried so much that she fainted from exhaustion and shame. She didn't know how long she had been unconscious. All she knew was that when she opened her eyes, she remembered what had just happened. She covered her face and sobbed. "Why did this happen to me? Thuy, where are you? Thuy." While she was crying, the door opened again, and this time 4 tattooed guys walked in. She pleaded, "Please forgive me. You're so delicious, how can we ignore you? Ha ha ha." After saying this, all 4 men took turns humiliating Than while she cried and begged for mercy. When they were done, they all left, leaving Than lying there, staring at the ceiling, full of resentment. She just lay there for who knows how long. When she sat up, she was in pain. She gathered her clothes and went to the bathroom. She turned on the shower and sat there, letting the water wash away the filth from her body. She collapsed and cried, then continued her shower. After showering and changing into clean clothes, she took a taxi back to her room. She cried all the way home. When she arrived, she paid the taxi and went into her room. She didn't turn on the lights. She just sat with her hands on her knees, crying. She cried herself to sleep. She didn't know when she fell asleep. "Right now at Thuy's house? You bastard, why did you do that?" Thuy screamed and threw a pillow at Dai. He quickly grabbed it and said in a sarcastic voice, "What's got you so worked up? What if I let my girlfriend have a little fun?" "Haha, you dog, we agreed that we'd just knock her out. Why did you do that? You're my boyfriend and you did that to another girl?" Dai tried to justify his despicable actions. "I was going to do that too, but I don't know. It's just that she's too tempting." "You vile, disgusting thing." Thuy rushed toward Dai, but he quickly grabbed her hand and squeezed it tightly. "That's enough. Are you trying to let the whole neighborhood hear? If you're smart, just keep your mouth shut, and I'll still respect you and give you a happy life. Otherwise, you'll lose everything. Got it?" Thuy pulled back in pain as Dai shoved her. She knew that upsetting him would do her no good, so she bit her tongue and faked a smile. "But she saw your face. What if she reports you?" "You don't have to worry about that. I covered my tracks. She was blindfolded. How could she recognize anyone?" Just then, Dai got a phone call. After answering it, he left. Thuy looked at him with hatred, but right now, there was nothing she could do. What worried her most was whether Than would find out anything. Damn it. Her boyfriend changed the plan, so she couldn't control the situation. As she looked at her bruised wrist from the earlier struggle with Dai, she smirked because she thought of a way to deceive Than. She went to the closet, closed her eyes, and banged her head against it, enduring the pain to make sure her head had a wound. Tomorrow, she'd go see Than. Blood flowed from her forehead to the corner of her mouth, but she smiled wickedly. The next morning, a knock on the door woke Than up. Her whole body ached. She crawled to the door and struggled to open it. In front of her stood a woman with her face covered. She wondered, "Who are you?" The woman removed her veil. It was Thuy. At that moment, Than almost burst into tears, shouting, "What are you doing here? Haven't you hurt me enough?" "Calm down, let's go back to your room." Thuy quickly entered, and Than, too weak to stop her, sat down on the bed. "What do you have to say?" Thuy didn't answer right away. She took off her glasses, hat, and coat. Than noticed that Thuy's face was bruised, with a sizable cut on her forehead, and her hand was also bruised. "What happened to you? Could it be? I drank with you last night. Suddenly, everything went blurry, and then I passed out. When I woke up, I was assaulted by those scoundrels." As Thuy said this, she hugged her face and cried. Than was surprised. It turned out Thuy had also been humiliated like her. She walked over and hugged her to comfort her. "Those bastards! I'm going to report them to the police." Hearing this, Thuy panicked. "Don't. I'm afraid they'll take revenge. This place isn't safe. You know it's dangerous to provoke them. Should we just let them roam free after humiliating us?" I asked Mr. Dai to investigate. He said they often go to the bar. Maybe some of his guys know them. Can you trust him? Thuy nodded decisively. Than agreed not to report to the police. Seeing that Than trusted her, Thuy chuckled inwardly. Suddenly, Than asked, "But how did Dai know that they often went to that bar? Did he recognize their faces?" Thuy was confused by Than's question and scrambled for an explanation. I remember one of them was hitting on me before you arrived. I described him to Dai, so he might be able to identify them." Than was a bit suspicious, but couldn't recall enough details to contradict Thuy, so she accepted the explanation for now. Once Kwok returned, she would tell him everything and find a way forward. Thinking of Kwok made her heart ache. She couldn't keep this a secret from him for long. Thuy's phone vibrated, startling her. Thuy quickly picked up the call and put it on speaker. Dai's voice boomed from the phone. "Hey, where are you? Get back here. I have something awesome for you." Thuy responded. "Oh, I'm at Than's. I'll be right back." After hanging up, Thuy turned to her friend and saw Than deep in thought. She felt a pang of guilt. "Than, oh, Dai probably has some news. I need to go see him." "Okay, call me if you find anything," Than replied. Thuy quietly said yes, and then walked to the car, started the engine, and drove away. At this moment, Than had a very strange feeling. Why was Thuy acting so confused? While trying to think, a headache struck her, making her dizzy. She returned home to rest. Thuy arrived home and saw Dai standing next to his brand new car. "Is it pretty?" "This time he had a successful shipment, so I bought it for myself." "Don't be angry with me anymore. If you're good, you can have whatever you want." Thuy looked at the car with delight. It was very beautiful. She thought to herself, "Never mind, as long as he takes care of me and makes me happy." Men always crave something new. Dai told her to change clothes, and then he'd take her out to eat while the new car got washed. She agreed, and because she was so happy, she forgot Than's skeptical attitude from earlier. Meanwhile, in Than's motel room, she had another terrible nightmare. In the dream, she was locked in a pitch-dark space, feeling around for an escape route. She felt suffocated. Suddenly, a ray of light appeared, and she walked toward it, but a jagged-toothed demon jumped out and grabbed her. Its slimy saliva fell on her face, and she screamed and tried to run away. The demon laughed loudly, baring its teeth, then bit her leg, causing blood to splatter. She screamed in pain, trying to crawl and hide from the demon. Behind her, she heard a voice calling her, "Sweetie, honey, heh," and turned around in fear to see Dai's face with bloodshot eyes and sharp teeth, blood mixed with saliva. She screamed and then woke up, breathing rapidly, sweating profusely as if she'd been doused with water. Those dreams are so scary. Why did Dai appear in my dream? Why did he call me honey? Honey? The word honey echoed in Than's mind. It felt oddly familiar, not because she had heard it on Thui's phone earlier that afternoon, but because she heard it somewhere else. Where? Where had she heard it? Than rubbed her forehead, deep in thought, then panicked as she remembered. It was from last night when the stranger assaulted her and called her that. That's right, it was him! But why did Dai call her that in the dream? Dai's voice on the phone from Thui's call was eerily similar to the stranger's voice that night. Could it be? Than was in shock and dialed Thui's number, wanting to tell her that Dai was a sinister and cowardly man. If Than's suspicion was correct, Thui might be in grave danger. Than called repeatedly, but Thui didn't pick up because she was drunk on alcohol and cigarette smoke. It wasn't until the 5th call that she answered with a slurred voice. Who's this? Why do you keep calling? Than quickly explained. It's Than. Where are you? Are you with Dai? You need to stay away from him. He's the one who set me up. Than's words made Thui sober up. She stammered and asked again, How do you know? What did you find out? I remember he said something to me last night. Thui couldn't stay calm enough to listen. She said frantically, Wait for me there, I'll come back, and we can talk more. After hanging up, Thui's hands were shaking. Dai had just come out of the bathroom and saw his girlfriend's worried face, so he asked, What's wrong, my darling? Why are you sitting there like that when we're having fun? Let me give you another kiss. Thui angrily pushed him away and scowled. Damn it, what did you say last night that made Than suspect you? She just called me. What? How is that possible? I didn't say anything. It was just... You worthless bastard, now she recognizes your voice? We're all done for. Dai sobered up quickly. He was also very scared of going to prison as it would affect his business. He worriedly asked Thui, What should we do now? Are you scared? If you're scared, why did you even do it? You're just a man who thinks with his lower half. Stop. Now's not the time to argue. Think of a way to get out of this. We don't want everyone ending up in prison. Thui gritted her teeth. We have to silence her. How? I'll improvise. I'm going. Stepping out of the bar, Thui started the engine and sped away. At the turn toward the motel room, she stopped at a pharmacy and then drove on. Nearing the motel, she hid her car in a nearby bush and then walked to knock on the door. Than opened the door, visibly anxious. Thui signaled for silence, looked around, then entered the room and closed the door. She asked Than, What do you remember? I had a nightmare, and I remembered last night he called me honey. The same voice I heard on your phone that afternoon. Thui silently cursed, the idiot, and then put on a worried expression to reassure her friend. Maybe you were so scared that you had a nightmare, which made you think it was Dai. It's not likely. How could Dai do that? I'm sure. I can't mistake that voice for anyone else. I'm calling the police to arrest him, and then he'll confess. Wait, who would believe your random dream? Just sit here calmly and see if you can recall anything specific. I'll get you some water. You look so pale. Thui stood up, went to the water dispenser, and poured a glass of water. She turned around and saw Than holding her head. Thui quickly took the package of sleeping pills she'd bought earlier, mixed them into the glass of water, and handed it to Than. Taking the glass from her friend, Than tilted her head back to drink it without hesitation. What's wrong? Do you remember anything else? I remember there was another person in the room, a woman's voice. Thui's heart raced, and sweat began to drip down her forehead. Seeing her friend's pale face, Than teased, Hey, you look even paler than me. Thui was startled and quickly replied, Are you kidding? I was just thinking about whether Mr. Dai really did that. I'll handle it. Than burst out laughing and blurted out, "You make it sound so easy. Your tone is just like the woman that night." As soon as she said this, Than suddenly stopped. Yes, that night the stranger and a woman had an argument. Than stood up and looked at Thuy. "I remember, the woman last night also wanted to get rid of that man. The tone is just like yours." "No." "The woman's voice is exactly like yours. Was it you?" The sleeping pills had now taken effect, and Than stumbled and fell onto the chair. Thuy gave a sinister smile and slowly stood up, walking over to her. "You finally recognized me. That's right, it was me. I was there in that room. That bastard had his eyes on you. I warned him. But in the end, he took advantage of my absence to make his move, and now you've figured it out. What a nuisance. But it's okay, so what if you know? Ha ha! I won't give you the chance to tell anyone. What are you going to do to me?" Than tried to stand up, but her legs felt like stone. Only then did she realize Thuy's true intentions. She had no remorse at all. Thuy had tricked her into going to the bar to carry out her and her lover's twisted plot. She realized it too late. Now, Thuy even intended to silence her. She cried, subconsciously calling for Kwok's help before passing out. Seeing that the sleeping pills had taken effect, Thuy carefully checked, then pulled Thon back onto the bed. She put on gloves and carefully deleted her number from the call log. She also texted Kwok saying, "I'm sorry," then turned off Than's phone. Thuy then opened the cabinet, took out a box cutter, took a deep breath, imprinted Than's fingerprints on the handle, and aimed at Than's wrist. Than's body twitched a few times and then fell silent. At this point, Thuy stood up in panic, wiped the blood from her face, and cleaned up the scene. She picked up a bottle of medicine and poured it onto the bed to create a fake crime scene, threw the bottle on the ground, checked the surroundings, and quickly went to the bush where she had hidden her car. After driving for a while, she felt a bit more at ease. At a red light, she stopped to catch her breath. Suddenly, she screamed and stumbled out of the car, because just a few seconds earlier, she had accidentally glanced across the street and saw Thon standing there, staring at her with hateful eyes. Blood was flowing onto the ground, staining the whole street corner and the red dress she was wearing. She held her head and babbled, causing everyone around her to look at each other in confusion. A girl approached and patted her shoulder, making her scream. She looked up and saw everyone around her staring at her like she was a strange creature. She glanced back across the road and saw nothing. She quickly stood up, revved the engine, and sped off, not daring to look back. When she got home, she rushed into the bathroom, turned on the shower, and let the water pour over her head and face. Suddenly, she smelled something fishy and strong. When she opened her eyes, she was speechless to see that the water flowing from the shower was dark red like blood, emitting a disgusting fishy smell. She screamed so loudly that Dai, from outside the room, ran in, knocked on the door, and shouted, "Are you okay? Why are you screaming so loudly?" Thuy quickly grabbed a towel and ran out, her face pale, and she could only say two words, "Blood, blood." Dai walked in, looked around, then came back out and told Thuy that there was no blood in the bathroom. Thuy peeked behind him and looked inside. Indeed, the shower was still running with normal water, no blood as she'd seen before. She came back to change clothes and curled up on the bed. Seeing this, Dai walked over, pretending to be concerned. "Have you calmed down? Talk to me. You took care of it, right?" Thuy angrily threw a pillow at Dai and blamed him. "Because of pathetic people like you, I have to do this. I'm scared to death, and all you care about is yourself." "I'm sorry, I was just confused. Nothing really happened." Thuy held her head and cried, which made Dai feel a little guilty. After all, she had helped him. Thinking this, he hugged her and softened his voice. "It's okay. I'm here." She laid her head on his lap and fell asleep. This time she slept peacefully without dreams. After Kwok left the company party, he drove back to the hotel. He was a bit drunk, so he drove quite slowly. Suddenly, a girl crossed the street, forcing him to brake hard. A dry pop sound rang out, making him panic because he thought he had hit someone. Rushing out to check, he saw a girl slowly sitting up. Kwok was relieved because she seemed to be okay. Because the girl's back was toward Kwok, he walked over and said, "Are you okay? Why did you cross the street without looking?" "Good thing I was driving slowly." The girl turned around and Kwok felt rooted to the spot. It was Than. What was she doing here? Kwok opened his mouth to speak but couldn't make a sound. At this moment, Than stood facing him, her face pale, her eyes filled with sorrow. Her lips moved, but he couldn't hear what she was saying. He tried to move towards her, but she suddenly turned around and walked away. Kwok called out her name. She turned around and Kwok was speechless because her entire body was stained red, the color of blood, with 2 streams of bloody tears flowing from her dark eye sockets. Suddenly, Kwok regained his strength. He rushed toward her, but she disappeared like mist, causing Kwok to fall to the ground. "Than!" Kwok suddenly woke up. It was just a dream. He must have fallen asleep in the car. But why did the dream feel so real? He hurriedly grabbed his phone, but it had shut off. Why is the battery dead now? Clicking his tongue, he quickly plugged it into the car's USB to charge. He felt anxious, worried that something might have happened to Than. Why did he let his phone die at this critical moment? "Than, hold on. Wait for me to come home." When the phone reached 3% battery, he turned it on and saw a text message from Than. When he opened it, it contained only 3 words, "I'm sorry." Panicking, he called Than, but the call couldn't connect. He tried calling 2 or 3 more times, but still couldn't get through. His heart felt like it was on fire. He decided to drive back to the city. As he drove, he prayed that Than was okay. He still had so much he wanted to do for her. Tears flowed as he feared the worst might have happened to his girlfriend. When he reached Than's apartment, Kwok rushed in without locking his car. He kicked the door in, and the scene before him made him collapse to his knees. Than lay sprawled on the bed, blood still dripping from her wrist onto the floor. He rushed to hold her cold body, screaming in vain. His cries attracted the neighbors, who gathered to see what was happening. The sight was heartbreaking, and everyone tried to comfort Kwok. A close neighbor spoke up. "I just saw her this afternoon. She even welcomed me happily. How could this happen now?" Hearing these words, Kwok felt even more heartbroken. He blamed himself for not calling her sooner, blamed himself for not charging his phone, blamed himself for being too busy and not paying more attention to her. He had intended to propose to her after this business trip, but now it was too late. The pain was indescribable. A moment later, the police arrived and began documenting the incident. Curious onlookers gathered in the yard. Kwok sat in a daze, and no one asked him anything. After a preliminary examination, the police concluded that it was likely an accidental cut, but further investigation was needed to be certain. The police asked to contact the family for confirmation. At this point, Kwok suddenly remembered Than's mother. How could she endure this shock? He decided to drive back to her hometown to bring Than's mother to the city. As he stood up to head to his car, he saw what looked like Than's figure in the chaotic crowd, standing there and looking at him with sad eyes. He quickly turned and ran toward the crowd, but there was no one there. He collapsed to his knees, sobbing. He had truly lost her. All procedures were completed, and forensics determined that Than's body contained sedatives, the same type of drug found at the scene. Only Than's fingerprints were found on the medicine bottle and the knife, leading to the conclusion that she had committed suicide. She fainted upon receiving the bad news. She couldn't accept the truth. How could her gentle, obedient daughter do something like that? Something must have gone wrong. She was so heartbroken that she couldn't bear it, so Kwok, on her behalf, took care of the procedures to receive Than's body for burial. Many people came to pay their respects. Everyone mourned the beautiful young woman. Among the visitors was also Thuy. After all, she was a close friend, and her presence was necessary to avoid suspicion. She looked somber as she came to light incense for Than. When she set the incense down, a sudden gust of wind blew red ash onto her hand, heating it up, and the altar shook violently, spilling the incense. Than's image seemed to glare at her. She screamed and stepped back, bumping into Kwok. He asked, "What's wrong with you?" Coming back to her senses, she saw that everything was still normal. The altar showed no signs of moving, so she quickly left. "Oh, I'm fine. I'm just leaving early. I have some work to do." As she was leaving through the gate, Kwok called her back. "Thuy, wait, I need to ask you something." Thuy replied but felt extremely uneasy. "What is it?" "Why did Than commit suicide?" Before Kwok could finish his sentence, she interrupted him. "Hey, I have nothing to do with that. Don't accuse me falsely. I didn't say anything. Why did you react so strongly? I just wanted to ask if you'd seen Than recently. I noticed a call log with your number. How is that possible?" "I deleted everything," she thought to herself worriedly. She quickly found an excuse to defend herself. "Actually, a few days ago, I called Than to apologize about the project. She agreed to forgive me and we resolved our differences. We were still friends like before. At that time, Than seemed happy, didn't show any strange signs. Well, I've got things to do, so I'll go now." Thuy left, and Kwok watched her, full of doubt. Her eyes, attitude, and gestures seemed very strange. He had just made up the story about the call log to test her reaction. He didn't expect it to rattle her so much. Clearly, she's hiding something. Once he got to the bottom of Than's story, he would investigate further. Knowing that Kwok was suspicious, Thuy was very worried. She was frantically thinking about how to handle it when she received a call from the company. She suddenly remembered her project, so she sped back to the office. With the celebration approaching, her superiors had everyone working overtime at full capacity. Because of this project, she had taken on huge responsibility. Whether she wanted to or not, she had to keep up with the pace. When the final parts of the project were completed, everyone started to leave. Looking at the clock, it was already quite late. Thuy turned off her computer and left. She was quite tired, and moreover, she was afraid that if she stayed alone, she might encounter Than's ghost again. As soon as the elevator door opened, the staff walked in and pressed the elevator to close without waiting for Thuy. She didn't know if they had forgotten about her or if some supernatural force was at play. She pressed the elevator button and waited for the next one. Tuhuran entered, hoping to catch up with them. The elevator slowly descended, and when it reached the third floor, it suddenly stopped, and the door opened. She was relieved, thinking that having company would make her less afraid. But no, her face turned pale as the door opened, revealing no one. She pressed the button to close the door, but it stubbornly stayed open. The elevator lights flickered a few times, then the door slowly closed. As the elevator began descending again, she heard heavy breathing behind her, sending a chill down her spine. The reflective doors showed two figures in the elevator, but when she turned around, there was no one there. Suddenly, the elevator door opened, and a hand landed on her shoulder, making her scream and then faint. Thuy opened her eyes and found herself in a strange forest. Surrounded by fog, she couldn't find the way out. The more she walked, the more lost she became. Suddenly, she saw a girl sitting with her face down in the distance. Feeling relieved, she ran over and asked, "Excuse me, can you help me find the way out?" The girl looked up and Thuy stepped back in panic. The girl's face was horrifying, her skin pale, her eyes pitch black, and her mouth stretched from ear to ear. The skin on the girl's body was peeling and falling off piece by piece. The girl slowly approached Thuy, her voice echoing like a haunting whisper. "It's me. Why did you hurt me? Give me back my life. No, stay away from me." Thuy groaned and then jolted awake, sweating profusely, realizing she was in the hospital. It was just a dream. Why was she here? "Are you awake?" She looked up and saw Quack. She felt a pang of guilt and asked him, "Why are you here?" "I went to the company to pick up some of Than's things. I happened to see you fainting in the elevator, so I brought you here." Thuy seemed suspicious when Quack answered that way. She frowned. "Is that just a coincidence? Did you see anything strange when you arrived?" "What's strange? I don't understand." Suddenly realizing that she had said something wrong, Thuy quickly changed the subject. Unfortunately, Quack noticed the inconsistency. He thought for a moment, then pretended to recall. "When I carried you out, I heard you say something." Thuy stammered in panic. "I didn't hear anything, but it seemed like you were begging someone." Thuy's face turned completely pale. Quack continued, "Maybe I misheard, but why does your face look so tense? Are you okay?" As he spoke, Quack gave Thuy a scrutinizing look. She awkwardly avoided his gaze. At this moment, the doctor arrived. Quack excused himself, saying he had something to do, and left. Thuy watched him leave, feeling a deep sense of fear rising in her heart. The doctor's voice snapped her back to reality. "Make sure to eat and drink well to stay healthy, and rest often to keep the pregnancy stable." Not believing her ears, she asked, "What did you say, doctor? Pregnant? What do you mean?" "You're 4 months pregnant." "You didn't know? Pregnant? How could she be pregnant now?" "No, she didn't want a child." Just as her career was picking up, could she let it all slip away? Surely that unfaithful boyfriend would just leave her with the responsibility. No, she couldn't waste her youth on him. Thinking this, she walked back to the doctor and cautiously said, "Doctor, I don't want to keep the pregnancy. Can you? Why? The pregnancy is developing well. Why don't you want to keep it?" The doctor replied seriously. I'm an orphan. I have no one to rely on. If I give birth, there'll be no one around to support me. Please, doctor, help me." After thinking for a moment, the doctor sighed. "I can't do that, but I will refer you to this clinic." Receiving the address from the doctor, Thuy walked away quickly, leaving behind the doctor's shaking head. She went to the address on the paper, a small clinic. Taking a deep breath, she entered. After an examination and completing the necessary procedures, she was given a prescription for oral medication. Because the fetus was still small, no surgical procedure was needed. She took the medication and returned home. She looked at the pills in her hand, and a tear gently fell. She wiped it away and said to herself, "You were born into the wrong life. Don't blame me. Blame the fact that you have the blood of a worthless person." Closing her eyes and swallowing the pill, she climbed into bed. That night, a severe stomachache made her writhe in pain, gritting her teeth to endure it. She clutched her stomach and crawled to the bathroom. It felt like every muscle in her body was tearing apart. She screamed and fainted. She didn't know how long she had been unconscious, but when she came to, she saw the entire bathroom stained a dark red. She looked down and was horrified to see a lump of red flesh lying on the floor. She wrapped it in paper, then put it in the toilet. as she looked at the fetus she had just discarded, no larger than a tadpole struggling in the toilet bowl. She felt a surge of panic when its eyes seemed to look at her with resentment. She quickly pressed the flush button. Turning on the shower, she washed the blood off herself and the bathroom floor. She struggled to get out of the bathroom, changed her clothes, and threw her stained clothes in the trash. Taking the supplements the doctor prescribed in the afternoon, she swallowed the pills and then collapsed, crying. She cried for a long time, the first time she had truly felt such pain. She stammered sorry over and over, crying until she was completely exhausted and fell asleep. The next morning, when she woke up, her throat felt dry. As she tried to get out of bed, she screamed in terror. She saw clusters of red slime filling the room. Panicking, she ran into the bathroom and turned on the tap. Strangely, her hands wouldn't wash clean, and the water in the basin turned red. She shouted, "Go away! Go away! Leave me alone!" A hand grabbed her shoulder, making her heart stop. It was Dai, and he shook Thui's shoulder hard. "It's early morning. Why are you screaming so loudly? Blood all over the room. I can't wash it clean." Dai roared like a beast. "What nonsense are you talking about? Why would there be blood?" Thui looked down, but there was no blood on her hand. The water was clear. She quickly ran back to the bedroom, and everything was normal. The bloody fingerprints on the wall had also disappeared. Not knowing what was happening, Dai yawned and commanded, "Go buy me some food." "Damn it, I've been up all night for nothing. The police are being very thorough." Seeing Thui still standing there, he shouted, "Are you deaf? Go now." Thui replied listlessly, "I'm sick today. I want to rest." "What the hell? Go quickly. Don't make me angry." Thui tiredly got out of bed. She didn't dare disobey Dai because he was her only source of financial support. After she finished getting him food, Dai nodded and said to Thui, "Hey, give me some money. My business isn't going well. The police are tightening things up." Hearing what Dai said, Thui was infuriated. She'd already given him money, and now he wanted more. She snapped back, "What do you need money for? I sent it all to my mother. But why are you worried about the police? Mind your own business. Give me the money quickly." "I told you no." Dai angrily swore and grabbed Thui's car keys. "Then I'll borrow the car for a few days." Thui was startled and ran over to grab the keys back. "No way. It's my car. Give them back." "Why do you talk so much? I bought the car with my money, so it's mine." Dai shoved Thui away and left. She was furious and crying but couldn't do anything. Looking at the clock, she stood up, changed clothes, and took a taxi to the company. Entering the room, it seemed like no one had arrived yet. She put her bag on the table and then slumped into the chair, trying to relax her mind. Suddenly, a gust of wind brought a fishy smell that jolted her awake. The room was closed. Where was the wind coming from? She looked around and saw nothing, but just as she sat down, her phone rang, startling her so much she almost fell. It was an unfamiliar number. She answered the call. "Hello?" There was silence on the other end, just the intermittent sound of wind whistling. She checked the number and said, "Hello" again. This time, it was still the sound of the wind, but then she heard a faint sobbing. Who? Sweat poured down her face, and she tried to calm herself, asking, "Who? Who is this? Give me back my life. Give me back my life. You're evil." She threw the phone on the floor in fear, and a white shadow flashed behind her, sending chills down her spine. She turned around, looked around, but saw no one. The phone rang again, and she backed away in fear, pressing herself against the wall. She sank to her knees and muttered, "Go away. Why are you still haunting me even after you're dead?" The chair she had been sitting in suddenly spun around. The lights in the room flickered, and every computer screen simultaneously displayed the word repay. She got up and ran out of the room. She rushed to the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and splashed water on her face. "Wake up, it's just an illusion." As she looked up, her eyes widened in fear because Than's image appeared in the mirror. Her entire body was covered in blood. Her face was deathly pale with a sinister smile. Too scared, Thuy sank to the floor and slowly retreated. Than's ghost walked slowly toward her, pieces of slimy flesh falling off, emitting a terrible odor. "Are you afraid of me? We were friends. No, go away!" As she spoke, Thuy clasped her hands and pleaded, "I beg you, Than, don't haunt me anymore. It's all your fault. You forced me. You forced me to get rid of you. Why are you better than me at everything? Don't blame me. If you don't die, then I will. Since you pushed me to do it, why do you remember that Dai hurt you? I'm the one who drugged you so you would be humiliated by them. If you remember, I'll go to jail because you forced me." Than's ghost roared in anger, and the mirror in the bathroom shattered with a loud crash. A shard of glass fell on Thuy, injuring her. At this moment, Than's ghost was even more terrifying, with her white eyes wide open and her mouth gaping as she let out a ghastly howl, causing Thuy to faint on the spot. When she woke up, Thuy found herself lying on a bed in the company's medical room. The room was dimly lit, with only a faint light. Feeling a slight sting from the wound on her hand, she got out of bed and called out, "Is anyone there?" No one responded, and her heart was pounding. She walked toward the door, about to leave when the door opened by itself, letting in a blinding light that made her step back. Squinting, she saw a newborn baby lying on the floor. It cried loudly and then suddenly stopped. The baby sat up and laughed hysterically, the laughter echoing throughout the room and terrifying her. This was clearly not normal laughter. The baby crawled toward Thuy, who was taken aback by its appearance. Still red, its skin wrinkled, and its face lacking eyes and a nose, just dark holes. It kept laughing hysterically, which made her even more scared. Suddenly, it stopped and called out, "Mom, Mom," and then started laughing again. "Help! Someone help me! Mom, it's me, the child you killed. I borrowed this body to meet you." "You're a demon. Stay away." "What demon?" The child let out another eerie laugh and slowly twisted its arms and legs backward, which looked extremely horrifying. What was even more terrifying was that Thuy's arms and legs also twisted in the same way. In pain, she screamed for help. The child's voice was deep. "Does it hurt? This is nothing compared to a mother who kills her own child." Hoo. A mournful cry filled the room, making Thuy tremble. "Forgive me. I'm sorry." The baby raised its hand and struck its own head, causing it to fall off and roll toward Thuy. Terrified, she screamed in fear. Dai gently patted Thuy's cheek to wake her up. She jolted awake and sat up, startled. "Forgive me! Forgive me!" Dai grabbed Thuy's shoulder and shook it hard, hissing, "Snap out of it! What nonsense are you talking about?" Thuy seemed to awaken from a nightmare, and she hugged Dai. Tears streamed down her face. "Help me!" Than appeared and demanded my life. Dai pushed her away, wondering why he had to deal with this. He didn't directly kill anyone. Thinking this, he replied calmly, "It's just a dream. You're imagining things. You fainted at the office, and they brought you home." Her soul was crushed by obsession. It wasn't just a dream. She fainted at the company, and they took her home. Thuy held her head and said miserably, "No, that's not it. I have to help you. You also played a role in this. You were involved." Seeing Thuy rambling on, Dai seemed indifferent. "It has nothing to do with me. If you caused it, deal with it on your own. Don't drag me into this." Only then did Thuy realize his callousness. She gritted her teeth. "You scoundrel, I'll report you. Let's both go to jail for fun." Dai was furious that Thuy dared to threaten him. He dragged her to the ground and slapped her repeatedly, making her dizzy. After midnight, Thuy woke up because of a noise. She sat up and looked next to her to see Dai sleeping. The noise was the sound of windows banging against each other. It was raining outside, and rainwater was flooding into the room. Lightning flashed. She got down, put on her slippers, and went to close the window. When lightning struck the sky, illuminating the entire area behind the house, she froze. Right in the bushes near the door, she saw a girl standing there, her hair covering her face. The girl wore a white dress, identical to the one Thon had worn. The girl's entire body was red, her white dress was stained, and in her hand she held something bundled up that Thuy couldn't clearly see. The ghost of Thon suddenly glided closer to the window, scaring Thuy so much that her limbs grew weak. The girl's face was pale, with white eyes glaring at her. Rainwater dripped from her hair onto her rotting face, where maggots crawled. Only then did Thuy realize that the bundle in the girl's arms was a newborn baby, the same eerie child from the medical room she had once seen, with light blue skin, deep black eye sockets, and no nose, just a wide mouth. "I will bring the baby back to you. If you still have the heart to abandon your child, you deserve to be banished to hell." After Than's ghost finished speaking, both she and the baby burst into horrifying high-pitched laughter. Thuy could only stand there, paralyzed by fear, unable to move. Just as the two ghosts stopped laughing, another thunderclap rang out in the sky, piercing the night with dim light. Only then did Thuy slowly turn around and walk toward the sleeping Dai, muttering, "Deal with it! Deal with it! I have to deal with it." The whole room was filled with a creepy atmosphere. The rain fell heavily and the wind howled, slamming the window against the wall. Thuy moved as if gliding on the floor, her throat emitting a continuous hissing sound. She stopped in front of Dai, tilted her head and smiled strangely, then suddenly lunged at him, causing him to scream in shock. He was too surprised to react and could only struggle and kick to escape. But strangely, Thuy's body seemed to have some dark power, and he couldn't push her away. Thuy laughed shrilly, her vacant, lifeless eyes scaring him so much that he wet his pants. Dai used every ounce of strength to fend Thuy off, but she roared like a wild animal and tightened her grip. He tried to scream loudly, but his voice came out as a faint murmur. His face began to turn red. His eyes opened wide, his pupils shrinking to their limits, and his legs kicked a few more times before they grew weak. Then there was silence. Just as he left this world, a bolt of lightning flashed, and he could clearly see 3 shadows looming on the wall above him. Thuy seemed to wake up from a coma. Looking down, she screamed in horror. Dai was dead, his mouth wide open, his eyes bulging and bloodshot. He looked terrifying. Thuy stepped back, holding her head in her hands. She couldn't remember what had happened. "What's this? What did I do?" From the darkness of the room, Than's ghost stepped out, blood and rainwater dripping onto the damp floor. Thuy's eyes widened, her arms and legs went numb, and her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her whole body felt glued to the floor. In Than's arms, the baby sat cross-legged, looking about 6-7 months old. Its face was ghostly white, with strange blue veins running across it. Than's lips moved. "This isn't your first time killing someone. Is there any reason to be afraid? Open your eyes, open them wide and look." Thuy wanted to close her eyes, but she couldn't. It was as if someone was holding them open. Outside, the rain had stopped. The night was dark, and the wind howled, filling the room with the smell of decay. Lightning still flickered across the sky. Suddenly, Thuy saw Dai's body move. His head turned to look at her, his bloodshot eyes glaring. Terrified by the scene before her, she quickly grabbed the bag next to her and ran. Behind her, the eerie laughter of the two ghosts mingled with the sound of the wind, sometimes close, sometimes distant. She didn't know how long she had been running, but when she finally collapsed from exhaustion, she realized she had run out of the city. She stopped to catch her breath and regain her strength. Dawn had just broken, revealing everything in clearer light. In front of her was a boarding house. It seemed to be a student residence. She approached and saw an older woman working outside. She was the owner of the boarding house. Thuy made up a sob story, and fortunately, there was a room available, so she moved in. Once in her room, she tightly closed the door, as if afraid some ghost would enter. Exhausted, she fell asleep. While preparing for work, Kwok received a text message from an unknown number. When he opened it, he saw it contained a video file. Curious, he opened the video and was so shocked that he nearly dropped his phone. It was a video of Thuy screaming, kneeling, and repeatedly apologizing to the space in front of her. She seemed to be confessing to some terrible act and begging for forgiveness. Kwok quickly called his workplace to request a day off and then ran straight to the police station. After watching the video Kwok provided, the police officer told him something that surprised him even more. The police had issued an arrest warrant for Thuy, suspecting she had killed her lover at her home. Kwok couldn't believe that someone like Thuy could commit such a heinous crime. He shook hands with the police officer and left. For some reason, upon learning the truth, he felt more sadness than relief. He felt that the human heart could be truly frightening. Than probably never expected that one day she would be murdered by someone close to her. The 2 days that passed for Thuy felt like a never-ending nightmare. She could only go out at night to buy necessary supplies. Furthermore, she was constantly haunted by ghosts, Thans, the babies, and Dais. Every time she closed her eyes, Dai would appear, pressing his face close to hers, his face waxy white, his eyes wide open. It felt as if a heavy stone was pressing down on her, rendering her immobile. Her throat seemed choked, and her words came out like a child learning to talk. As soon as her body was able to move again, her stomach suddenly swelled and became deformed. 2 tiny hands slowly pressed outward from inside her. The tiny hands emerged from her stomach and crawled across the floor. Thuy screamed in pain, her whole body trembling. The baby's body was dripping with red slime. It laughed, then turned around and crawled toward the waiting Than. "Come on, baby!" In too much pain and fear, Thuy woke up. Sweat poured from her body, her limbs trembled, and her lips turned pale. This happened every day, making her afraid to sleep and scared of the dark. In just 2 days, she had become thinner. Her face was haggard, her eyes were sunken with dark circles, and she had lost all energy. She burst into tears, thinking about her life. Why did it have to end like this? By now, she should have had a warm blanket, a soft bed, a stable job, and freedom. Why did she have to hide like this? She suddenly remembered her mother, feeling incredibly ungrateful, and wanted to visit her. But the police were probably there now, so if she showed up, she'd be arrested immediately. Thinking about it, she took the risk to visit her mother and then confess everything. Determined to do this, she put on her coat, mask, and hat, avoiding the prying eyes of neighboring rooms. She joined a crowd of people waiting for the bus. When she saw police officers approaching, she panicked and pulled her hat down over her face. It turned out that the people living nearby had found her behavior suspicious, hearing strange noises and screams from her room, so they called the police. Seeing the police coming toward her, she trembled and tried to run away, but as soon as the bus arrived, she screamed in terror and ran off. In the front row, she saw Dai sitting there, grinning with white teeth in a creepy smile. The police officers immediately chased after her. Thuy kept running until she collided with someone. Regaining her balance and looking up, she screamed again because she had just bumped into Thon, and Dai was also behind her. There was no escape. She closed her eyes and crossed the street, only to be hit by a car speeding from out of nowhere. The impact flung her into the street. In that moment, between life and death, her beautiful memories came rushing back. She had a good friend and an incredibly beautiful youth. Tears of belated regret began to fall. Thui saw Thon standing next to her and heard her whisper, "Let's go!" "Forgive me. I'm sorry." Thui spoke a few words, then stopped breathing. She felt her body lighten. Than and the baby walked over. Strangely, both of them no longer looked terrifying like before. Thui looked at the baby, her tears falling softly. "Forgive me, child." The baby held her hand, and both turned to wave goodbye to Than before slowly fading away. The sky suddenly darkened, the wind picked up, and clouds swirled, signaling the approach of rain. Kwok leaned over to close the window, then turned around and was startled to see Than sitting on the bed. He burst into tears. I'm sorry for just visiting you now. Today is my last day on Earth. I just wanted to thank you. Meeting you and loving you has been a great blessing. Perhaps our fate ends here, and I wish you a peaceful life. I love you." After finishing speaking, she wept. A strange light appeared in the sky, and a sound echoed through the air. "Goodbye. Live your life well too," Than quickly said before slowly fading away. Kwok lunged forward to embrace her, but she was only a thin mist. He fell to his knees, clutching his chest in anguish. He cried uncontrollably, and it started pouring rain outside. Thui's funeral took place quickly. Than's mother was also there. The two grieving mothers embraced each other and wept, which made everyone who saw them feel sad. Now there was only shared sorrow, no room for hatred. Thui's death was a form of retribution for the crimes she had committed. It was also karmic justice. Yet it was tragic that the two mothers had no one else to rely on for happiness in their old age. Kwok put up a for sale sign and then moved away. No one knew where he went or what he did. Some said he remarried and lived happily. Others said he went to a monastery to spend the rest of his life seeking enlightenment. In the end, it was all rumors. No one knew the truth. The only thing that people knew was that every year, on the anniversary of Than's death, a man stood quietly for a long time in front of her grave, holding a bouquet of yellow roses, the flowers she had loved when she was alive. This year, on Than's death anniversary, there was a light drizzle. That man came again, stood silently for a while, and then turned away. On the grave there was a bouquet of yellow roses. Raindrops fell like tears, mourning an unfinished love. "See you in another life. We will meet again." The end.